everybody.
Hi, everybody.
You know who's with me, right? This is Dip in Time, and we have...
Rebecca from Sparkle Sanctuary.
Yay! So you get to see our canvases as we are working, but we wanted to get together because we do diamond painting for different reasons. I do diamond painting because it is my mindful grounding place that relaxes me and calms me. What about you, Rebecca? What got you into diamond painting?
Well, I think why I stay, what got me here was different, but I think why I stay in diamond painting is because I just find it a good stress relief. I think for my anxiety, it's a consistent, and the sounds of it, there's a lot of things about it that just make me feel like it kind of relaxes some of my anxiety. I'm a multitasker at heart. I love doing multiple things. And so I like that I can do diamond painting and listen to videos or podcasts or whatever and have both of those things going so that my brain doesn't constantly go, because my brain is never quiet. It is a noisy place. I think ADHD makes it so that I can't ever stop thinking. And when you have anxiety and you can't stop thinking, then you tend to fixate on your anxiety, like whatever is stressing you out. Say there's a situation at work, whatever is an example. And then later on in my day, I think about it. And at night when I'm sleeping, I think about it. And diamond painting shuts all of that off for me.
How do you think that happens? How do you think diamond painting helps you calm things down?
I think it is because I'm multitasking. Because if I get distracted really easily. So if I'm just in the kitchen doing dishes, my brain will wander. If I am cleaning my bathroom, my brain will wander. If I'm walking in the hallway at the school I work at, my brain will wander. Sometimes even in conversations, I'll be standing there talking to somebody fully invested in the conversation. But if I don't have a moment to engage where it's a back and forth conversation, my brain will wander. And it's not something that I have control over, and I hate that my brain does it. But because when I'm diamond painting, it's multiple things at a time. It keeps me focused.
And I don't think you're alone in that, quite honestly, because as you're saying that, I'm finding myself relating to it. Going, if it's a one-sided conversation, I can hear it, but then my brain's like, okay, what else is going on? Oh, right, don't forget about this. Or, hey, right, you did this. And then you kind of pop back into the conversation and going, right. And it's usually when I pop back in, it's based off of something I've heard, a certain word or a certain sound. It could literally be them, the person I'm talking to, move, and it's the movement that catches my attention. So I can understand that. And when you're doing dishes or you're just doing things around the house, it's kind of like a routine behavior. So it's not like you're learning how to wash dishes. You're not getting into the active listening or the active learning. It's more passive.
But see, and that's the weird thing, because for me, I actually have to, part of my brain process for those kinds of things is I actually have to go through a lot of the steps. I know I've heard several people say they can just get in the shower and then they get out of the shower and they're like, oh, I don't remember doing any of that. No, I actually have to think and make a conscious effort and go, okay, right now it's time for me to wash my face. Right now it's time for me to wash my hair, or I will forget steps. I get lost. And the same thing happens when I'm doing dishes. So sometimes, and that's part of why, sometimes I listen to music or whatever, and I partially do that because it helps keep me in track of being able to go through those steps without having my mind wander too far.
Oh, interesting. Interesting. But I would suspect that you're not alone in that either.
I also,
people.
Right? And even in conversation, like when I'm talking, if you say a word or phrase and it's a phrase or word that I know from a song, my brain will actually go to those song lyrics. And I'm singing the song in my head while you're continuing on talking.
Yes. Oh my goodness. I do the exact same thing, and I don't know all the words, but I will start humming to it.
So if somebody walks up to me and says hello, I don't just automatically go hello. My brain says, hello, it's me, or hello, is it me you're looking for?
Yeah. Yep.
All of the hello songs that are out there. And sometimes my brain will even go, oh, wait a minute, that wasn't the one you wanted to think of. You wanted to think of this one, and I'll think of the other one too.
Isn't that the truth? Like, I'll be watching, we were watching, I don't even remember what the show was. We were watching last night, and it came up with something. I'm like, do, 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 do. And I'm like, okay, never mind. My husband's like, what? I'm like, never mind. I'm just muttering to myself. We're good.
Yep. Yep.
And it's interesting because people do that even when you're out walking about or you're going somewhere. And I don't know about you, but there are times where I find I'm thinking something and I will actually like answer myself verbally, not a long sentence, but and I'm like,
yes.
Oh, sorry. And people come with me like, never mind, I'm good.
Yes, I've had to explain to because I share a room with two people, and I've had to explain to them, I'm sorry, I'm an auditory processor. So if you hear me talking, it's not necessarily to you.
Yes, exactly. And
sometimes I just can't think unless I'm saying it out loud.
Yeah. And I find myself just saying, don't mind me. I am just mumbling to myself.
Yep. Yep.
You don't need to worry unless the other part wins the conversation.
Well, when I start answering myself, that's when it's, they say in psychology, it's okay to talk to yourself as long as you don't answer yourself.
So if you answer yourself, what does that mean?
Well, I mean, like if you have a conversation where it's back and forth between yourself and yourself, yeah, that's not necessarily healthy.
I would say, I'm going to ask for clarification here.
Okay.
Because there are times where, okay, so prime example, last night I'd gone to our community garden and I had brought stuff home and I was like, okay, which one are we going to fill? Oh, Rhonda, you just dropped that. Okay, don't worry about it. It's all good. And I go ahead. That's different than what you're referring to about having a conversation with yourself.
Yes. Yes. Okay. So if you're like for me, if I were to go, okay, Rebecca, should I record today? Yes, you should record today. Okay, thank you. What do you want to do for dinner? Well, I think for dinner we should have mashed potatoes and green beans and whatever, like that's different.
Okay, so it's more of a, instead of having another person actually there, you're actually in a way presenting as there's two individuals having a conversation.
Yes.
Okay. Because I know people say like, oh, you're talking to yourself. Oh, and I'm like, no, I'm okay. Like, really?
Yes. Conversations. That's a totally normal thing to do, especially if you have ADHD or trauma or neurodivergency of any kind. Yeah. That's actually fairly normal, and it's misconception. And I'm glad you asked the clarifying question because it's important to recognize, like, we're okay. It's okay to be like, oh my gosh, I can't believe I just dropped that. That was really not very cool of me, but I will pick this up. It will be okay.
Rhonda, what were you thinking? I don't know. Okay, let's go. It's like, oh, I've done this or I've done that. Or Rhonda, what were you really thinking? I don't know. It seemed like a good idea at the time.
Right.
And I don't know about you, but for me, I find that sometimes without thinking about it, and I'm getting a little more comfortable with it, is I actually do that when I'm experiencing something and I'm trying to process what's going on.
Yes, that's auditory processing.
And it's something that I've either haven't been allowed or I was taught that you don't do certain things. So, for example, when I first diamond painted, I was like, oh my God, these are not straight. And I'd get mad at myself. And I would actually start talking quietly to myself, like, it's okay, Rhonda. This is not like the end masterpiece that you are selling for millions of dollars. It does not have to be completely straight. So I find I do it as a part of reaffirming that I'm okay.
Right. Well, I mean, even if anybody goes to therapy or has been to therapy, those positive self-affirmations are things they actually tell you to say verbally, because sometimes when we think them, it does not stick as much as when we hear them. And
Right.
so that's why when it's auditory processing is actually a thing, because it helps us kind of go through the thinking process out loud so that we make sure that we're on the right track.
Right. And so part of that I'm finding as I'm learning about this, going through therapy and trauma therapy in particular, is that it's hard to say certain things.
Yes.
And when it does come out, it's like, oh my God, it's a fact. It is real. It is not just my imagination.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, oh my God, I want to take it back. Please let me take it back. Like, can I undo it? Okay, we just backed up. Let's do a re-over. But it's also just hearing the words come out and the way it feels in my mouth. I don't know if that makes sense.
Yeah.
But when I hear certain words, I feel certain ways, and I cannot say certain things. Yet when I'm like, okay, it's safe, you're here, it's not then, it's just a word. It's just a word. It's teaching myself or relearning that it's just a word.
Yes.
Break that association with it. And it's so part of that I find is like boundaries.
Mm-hmm.
When I know when a boundary is being approached, being hit, has been crossed, and it's really hard to actually vocalize that I'm not okay with this, but I don't know how to explain to you that I'm not okay with this. And part of the other piece is, am I allowed to not be okay with that?
Yes. I understand what you're saying. Yeah, I think this is having a way, having a way to kind of calm your brain from those thoughts and feeling like you have a safe place to go is super important. That's kind of why I named my channel the Sparkle Sanctuary, because I feel like for me, diamond painting is my sanctuary.
And I can see that. I can understand that. I can appreciate that. That's kind of why mine is Dip in Time. Dip is a reference to my ferret, who is Dipper. And she makes us pause whatever we're doing when she wants something or she needs something. And it's like, okay, what is it? You can't just shove it down. You can't just brush it over. And the Dip in Time is the opposite of Step in Time from Mary Poppins, where everything is sequenced. It's all the same. It is together. There's no fluidity to it, really. When I think of Step in Time, I think of like military marches. Everything is practiced and where Dip in Time is pause. Get curious. Ask questions. Make mistakes. It's the process of how do we learn, how do we reconnect with acceptance of just pausing.
Yeah. That's cool. That's cool. So we've been chatting for a little bit, but we haven't actually maybe we should talk about what we decided to do here, why we decided to do this, and what our plan is for the future. What our hopes are, I guess. Not our plan, our hopes for the future, I guess.
Yes. No, and that's great. I sometimes will forget that I've already had all these thoughts and plans and then just get right into it. And people are like, Rhonda, what are you talking about?
I do too. I was trying to be mindful of what I didn't like, we probably should have had some kind of thing written out, but I think these off the cuff conversations are kind of helpful for people to hear, like the reality of what it's like when you're, talking and thinking about mental health stuff. So,
Yeah,
do you want to start or you want me to start?
you can go for it.
Okay. So, if you don't mind, I'll just go ahead and just give a backstory of how we got to here.
Absolutely.
Okay. So for people listening, Rhonda and I went to the Crafters Paradise retreat, and I met this lovely person there, and we kind of chatted and became friends. And one of the things that we connected on was the fact that we both work in the mental health field. And so once I'm done explaining this, maybe we can both talk about like what we do in the mental health field and why we think this is important. But anyway, because of that, I'm sorry, I keep bumping my phone with my pen because it's so close to my canvas. I hope I don't make anybody nauseous with bumping it. Just pay attention to Rhonda's side of the screen.
Oh, no, because I'm fighting with my squares.
Well, we'll be fighting these struggles together.
Yes.
Anyway, so while we were there, I was encouraged to start a channel. And Rhonda was one of those people that were trying to encourage me. And in that process, she said, if it would help make you feel better, we could even do, I did it again, we could even do a collaboration, and maybe it could be mental health themed. And I left the retreat. I said, okay, well, I'll think about that. I left the retreat. I went home. My family encouraged me to start a channel. And so I did. And after I started feeling a little bit more comfortable with understanding the process of like editing videos and things like that, I said, hey, Rhonda, we mentioned this. And I had a situation fairly recently at the moment that I reached out where a close family member of mine had been called selfish for setting boundaries. And less than 12 hours later, I was called selfish for setting boundaries. And I was like, this is a mental health thing that I'm not sure people understand. Like, setting a boundary is not selfish. If you're trying to compromise, that's not selfish. Asking to have somebody to be willing to have conversations with you just so that they don't always get their way is not selfish. And I wanted to kind of have a full conversation about that, why it's important to recognize that it's okay to have boundaries and things like that. So I reached out to Rhonda, and yeah, so we're here. We just met up and started chatting. So yeah, we're here.
Yeah. So, those times where you offer to help someone and you sincerely mean it? There was no pressure. There was, like, what I had said to Rebecca was, like, you give time and thought to it when you want to think about it. There is no obligation. There is no expectation. If you want to do it, great. If you don't want to do it, great. Like, it was good. And
yes, Rhonda was very sweet about the whole thing.
Well, for me, it's important to hear what people think and feel. For me, I look at each person as a book. And the saying goes, don't judge a book by its cover. It's the stories inside that matter. So for me, people are like books, and I want to know the ooey gooiness of your story. What makes you you? And, I met Rebecca at the retreat, and I'm like, oh my God, I just feel this kinship with you. I'm like, I don't know, there's just something, a vibe, the presence, and, I was like, I need to talk to you. I'm also an individual who, if I see someone by themselves and I don't know them, I'm like, hey, how's it going? I'm so-and-so, which sometimes people can take as, oh, you're really extroverted. I'm not. I need my quiet time as well. And Rebecca and I just got talking. And
you approached me, actually. I was kind of sitting by myself, and you approached me.
Yeah, I did.
Which was very sweet.
I did. You were working on a beautiful canvas, and I'm like, hey, what are you working on? Kind of. Because when you don't know people, you don't know what their what their comfort level is with meeting people. Some people are like, hey, how you doing? And I sometimes can be like that if I'm feeling very comfortable. Now, mind you, when I was coming to the retreat, I had a very interesting experience with traveling. And I was at a point where it was like, you know what? You either like me or you don't like me. I don't have the capacity to really put up my shields anymore or my masks. And Rebecca and I got talking and discovered that mental health was important for both of us. And we kind of was like, and we had some really good, deep conversations.
Yes.
And it wasn't like, you need to tell me everything. It's like, no, you tell me if you want to, at whatever level you want to. You know, whatever you say to me stays here. I'm not going to share because it's not my story to share.
Yes.
And I think that's important too, that, you know, it's your story. It's nobody else's stories. And you can have two people in the same area with the same story, but they're not going to be the exact same.
Yes, because you can have a shared experience, but a different perspective.
Exactly. Exactly. And that's kind of where I am with my diamond paintings. Is I got into it as something that I could try and do, because at that point I had been working and things in my past just kind of came up and I was unable to go back to work. And it's like, okay, so what do we do now? Like, everything I have built defined my life of who I was, what I was worth, and so forth. And it's really hard as a trauma survivor. You build your world based on a lot of expectations, learnings, and trying to figure out exactly who you are and what do you like.
Yes.
Right? You have all these expectations from everybody else that you just automatically learn them. And I call them masks, where depending on which situation I'm in, you'll get a different portion of me. Because all of them are me. It's just, if I'm in a business situation, then it's more of the professional Rhonda that you will get. When I'm with animals and kids, it is more of the silliness. It's just different. And what ended up happening was I ended up going in and getting training for a peer support worker. And I became a peer support worker. And one of the organizations that I volunteer with is specifically to do with traumatic PTSD for people who have it. Now, PTSD it results from trauma, and it is usually seen as a singular event. Now, Rebecca, jump in at any time.
The only thing I want to add is that I feel like, very sadly and unfortunately, it is an overused term. People will claim to have PTSD just because they're like triggered in a moment by something somebody said and they're upset and they're like, oh, you gave me PTSD from that. And that's not how it works.
No.
And that I find incredibly frustrating and demeaning to those people who truly have PTSD or complex PTSD.
And I would tend to agree with you. We get, as a society, we get into these terms, these trendy terms.
Mm-hmm. Same thing happens with narcissists.
Yeah.
Yep. Sorry.
No, absolutely. And it's interesting because, yes, a person may experience something in a moment because of something or someone. That doesn't necessarily mean you have PTSD. You have to be
Yes.
diagnosed with PTSD. It is not something like, oh, I have all these symptoms. No. What they're beginning to realize is there's a difference between PTSD and complex PTSD. Complex PTSD is where an individual experiences multiple traumas over a time. It can be childhood, it could be living conditions, it could be war zones, a variety of different things. It can be earthquakes, it could be a car crash, but it's how a person is able to process what's going on. And they're finding that complex PTSD, there is a lot of it related to childhood.
Mm-hmm.
And so this foundation that I work with, we are doing different things. It's all peer support. It is not, we are the professional. But I find it has helped me on my journey because I thought I had everything sorted out. I was changing the cycle. I broke it and, things are going to be better. And I was in a working situation that was bringing things up. And I was like, no, I've got it. I've got it. I can do this. I'm not them. And unfortunately, my path had changed. And, it brings up a lot of, what did I do wrong? I did everything I was supposed to have done to change it, and it still did not work. And it's not that what I did was wrong or I wasn't good enough. It was, as I'm learning, what I learned and what worked for me back then doesn't always work in current situations. So for me, I use creativity as my exploration of relearning who I am and what works and allowing myself that opportunity to be curious. Because as adults, we're supposed to have our crap together and we're supposed to know everything. And you've got responsibilities. You need to be an adult. I'm like, I've always been an adult technically because I was doing all the stuff that everyone's like, ooh, they're so mature, I'm like, well, yeah, because I never had a childhood in certain ways.
Yeah.
Right. And you see that and you learn that, I don't know about you, Rebecca, but for me, it was like, I know I had a rough childhood growing up, but I was always taught, well, it could have been worse. So-and-so has it this. Like, you at least have that. So you always kind of minimize.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, no, I can't have that. Like when I was initially advised that, Rhonda, you have PTSD. And I'm like, no, I don't. I wasn't a frontline worker. I didn't go to the wars. I didn't live in poverty like these countries. Like that wasn't me. So I can't have it. But that is just one piece of it. That's not all of it.
And honestly, I think for a lot of people who are diagnosed with it, that's exactly the response that they have, because I had the same response. They were like, you have PTSD. And I'm like, from what? I think last week I told you it wasn't until I was in therapy and the therapist was like, you've been telling me, you're saying you don't have this, but you've been telling me all of these things. So this actually happened and you're not framing it correctly and you need to open your eyes.
Yeah.
And it wasn't until that moment. And she was like, you have PTSD, and which is complex PTSD is the version I have.
Mm-hmm.
It shook me to my core. I cried all the way home. Like I didn't know what to do with that information. And
exactly.
yeah, Like, how do you process that? How do you know what to do at that moment? Like, okay, so why are you telling me this? What is the plan? Like, how do I get over it? And the thing is the very first initial reaction is to say, how do I get over it? And you don't. You find coping skills and you cope with it. You grow around it. It becomes a part of who you are, but it does not define who you are destined to be.
Exactly. And I would agree with you, Rebecca. That's exactly, I'm like, no, I do not. I do not. And then it was like, okay, well, just give me the books. Tell me which websites I need to go to. I will read it. I will fix it, and I'll be good.
Yep.
No, it didn't. It didn't happen that way. And it still hasn't happened that way. And it never will happen that way.
No, because when you have complex PTSD, you actually have a change in your brain chemistry. There is a legal, like not legal, there's a official, I can't remember exactly what it's called, which I probably should remember, but there's a term for it. There is a physical change in your brain chemistry. You can't go back to who you were.
No. And, you know, and you make a very good point in that, even in just like general talk, where people like, I grew up, I did this, it changed me. Even if it wasn't something traumatic, and you're like, oh, if I could go back, I would change this. And it's like, but would you? Because you're not the same person.
Yep.
Right? And you know, the other part I know for me was my age. So yes, I had a work environment for it, but the other part is because there is those brain chemistry changes, when you're going through things physiologically, it can be part of why certain things come up. So for me, I was going through stress, my environment was changing. I was also starting to get into that stage of perimenopause. And it was like, what? No. And those can make a huge difference. You're not doing anything to exacerbate it. It's just, it's life.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we don't wake up one morning going, I'm going to have this today.
Right.
And right. Nobody wants to have this. I would never want this for my worst enemy. And it's like, no.
So
would not be good. Yeah.
We are both. So I think the thing that is important to take away from this is that we have experienced, both of us, in the mental health field in two different ways. We've been through something, and we have an education and experience in it work-wise.
Yes.
So, you know, I also, like you, have a history that at some point, I think I delve into it somewhat a little bit on my channel sometimes. Mm-hmm. Especially during Whipping Chats, I will kind of bring it up a little. I don't know how much I'm willing to share. I think I've said that once already. I'm not sure how much I'll share. I do have fear of retaliation on somewhat level by sharing. Should certain people find my channel, so I have to be cognizant of that all the time. All of the time. My words are I'm struggling, but anyway. But for work, I also do. I work with children and behaviors, and children who have experienced trauma. And I work in a school district of kiddos that need a lot of supports, either behaviorally, emotionally, mentally, whatever. And I am actually on the mental health team. And that's, you know, when I started back to work, I worked with kiddos with disabilities and assisted with behaviors in that way. A lot of my background, a lot of my strength is in the behavior field, but it's all mental health related. And my degree is in psychology, though I am not a licensed therapist. Does that make sense?
You have a different perspective of it. Yeah.
Yeah.
So you have a theoretical piece of it, but you haven't yet gone and got your master's or anything like that yet.
Yes. And so I'm actually I've been looking for a while, but I received some additional encouragement from a coworker this last week. And she provided some information for me to possibly look at places that could help me afford to go back to school. Because that's, I think, part of it. I'm a mom of 5 kids. Technically, 2 of my kiddos are adults. One of them is in college and one of them lives with his girlfriend, but they're 21 and 20. Well, one will be 20 in October, so 21 and 19. And then I have a daughter who is going to be 18 at the end of this month. And then I have twins that are going to be 16 at the end of next month. So they're all close in age. You
must have had them when you were all little, because you must have had them all when you were little, because you're not that old. I'm going to be 45. So I had them all before I was 30. Just like literally just before I was 30. I would never have thought you were that age.
Yeah. I'm going to be 45 in October. Big birthday. Wow. This year was a big birthday for everybody in my household. My boyfriend turned 50. My son turned 20. My daughter's turning 18. My twins are turning 16. And even my son that's turning 20, he's no longer going to be a teenager. Like, this year is big numbers for everybody.
Oh, wow. So hang on a sec. I think you said your birthday's in October.
Mm-hmm.
I'm an October baby too.
So you're a Libra?
Yes.
That makes sense. We Libras tend to find each other.
We do. And there are other side of the Libras. Remember, guys, there's scales. I have met some of the other scales. Okay, that just that's okay. I'm just gonna leave that one as is.
We promote balance for a majority of the time, but not everybody does.
No.
Some of us are unbalanced.
Very true. And it's not just the Libras.
Agreed. So anyway, I'm really struggling with this diamond. Sorry. So our thought, I think, was to possibly once a month, if we can, come on here, fight our diamonds.
Yes.
Fighting our diamonds. We're both working on squares, of course. Fight our diamonds. But come on and chat just once a month about something that we've experienced in the last month that's mental health related, that we have an opinion on, that we thought, because I think I shared with Rhonda was, honestly, like, the biggest thing that I've noticed is when I want to share information with people with mental health that have questions or that have a direction that they're wanting to go or whatever, a big thing is that we have to have a conversation about it. I feel like when you just talk at people, it doesn't work. And so I could bring this up on my channel, Rhonda can bring this up on her channel, but I think us having an open conversation is the best way to go. And my idea, and I'm hoping eventually what we can do, is get enough people that say, I found this interesting. I'm interested in more. I want to learn. How can we, can I be a part of that, where we can do like a live and have an open conversation with people in chat, asking questions and whatever. We cannot diagnose anybody. Nope. I want to preface this. We cannot diagnose anybody with anything. We cannot give you advice on directions to go in your life. We can give you perspective. We can give you insight based on our knowledge, but that is it. So if you're interested in that, let us know, because if we get enough people, I mean, even if it was 10 or 15 people that said, hey, we would be interested, then we could do a monthly live and talk about these things and have engagement and just see if we can't help people learn how to navigate things, and maybe, encourage people to take action and take steps in their lives. Like, if you're struggling and you're feeling alone, you're not alone. We're here. And if you're struggling and you're not sure whether or not you should, go to therapy because of experiences that you've had in the past, we will help encourage you in whatever way we can. And I think that that's the direction that would be really great for both of us, to be able to know that we're actually not just helping people mental health wise in our jobs and in our personal lives, but spreading that message even further and helping other people wherever we can.
Yeah. No,
Did I say
absolutely.
that?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, you did. The one piece I will add to this is I will have a conversation with anybody at any time if they would like it.
Same.
And I have a hard time. I have a hard time expressing myself sometimes. So having a conversation with like-minded individuals helps me kind of put some process and thoughts actually out. It's one thing to have like, oh, I'm going to have a whipping chat and I'm going to talk to myself. It feels really weird having that conversation by yourself at your house, and your other people in your house are walking around and they're like, oh, mom's just doing her mom thing, Rhonda's doing her thing, and they're all supportive. They're supportive, don't get me wrong, they are supportive, but sometimes it's hard to figure out how to move the conversation in a way that you wanted to, or you had hoped it would go.
Or that will be helpful to other people.
Yes.
Yes, I get it.
Right? Because we're definitely not alone. But there are days I'm like, oh my God, I don't know if I can do this. I feel so alone. And, I'll get a little message, hey, just thinking of you. I'm like, oh my God, you have no idea how that just made me feel. Right? And or you want to just say something to someone, and you're like, who do I say this to? Who will get it without judging me or jumping into rescue mode of, you need to do this. Well, no. And that's not what we're going to do. We're not here to rescue you. We want to empower you, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Because you have the skills and abilities. Sometimes it's just the support and encouragement. I know, well, Rebecca says, I encouraged her to do this. It also encouraged me to step forward to do this as well, because I've been wanting to do this, and I'm like, how are people going to receive it? What are they going to think of it? Like, as a trauma survivor, there's lots of thoughts that go through your mind. And I think even if you're not a trauma survivor, you have those thoughts like, oh my God, what are people going to think about me? Am I alone? Like, and it's funny. So when we were at the retreat, Rebecca, usually, so the retreat I went to was with Rebecca was the Crafters Paradise Retreat in Texas. It was the first time I had ever been to Texas. I think I knew about 8 people out of the 30. I did not know Rebecca to begin with. And, my trip there was very stressful. And like I said, I didn't have the capacity, and I was just like, oh, screw it. You know what? When I first walked through that door and I saw familiar faces and faces that were smiling, and they went, Rhonda, and I'm like, ah! And I'm like, oh crap. That was not what I wanted to do. And they're like, it's okay. I'm like, really? They're like, just let it out. And then we laughed. And the belly laughs that we had, the retreat was the second retreat I'd ever been to. And there were people who had been at the first retreat that I had gone to, and I thoroughly enjoyed it. But this retreat was different for me in many ways. And I had people come up to me and go, I have not seen this side of you. Oh my God, you are a hoot. And I'm like,
I heard people say that about you.
I'm like, I'm an owl? Who? No, you're a hoot. And I'm like, well, I sometimes can come across as either really quiet because I am trying to figure out the lay of the land, or I can just be really silly, goofy, and then regret what I've done. The people that we met are incredible. I was going to say were, but no, they're still incredible.
Yes. It's so funny because we were only there for a handful of days, like not even a handful of days, just a few days. And I miss everybody. Like I want to go, I'm so wanting to go back. It's insane. Yeah, we had great connections. I think the night where we all stayed up very, very late and there was conversations for anybody that was at the retreat. We're not going to share any more information for this, but inside joke for those at the retreat, the ping pong conversation, that was hilarious. And it made me feel so much more open. And I wish that I had opened up more before that moment because I was so nervous and I was so shy and didn't know anybody. I didn't know a soul. I didn't know you had a channel. This was my first, that was my first experience of you. And so I started following you right away. And then I didn't even figure out until I had been there for 2 days that half of the people there had channels. There was only a few of them that I knew had channels. And I was like, wait, who is that? Oh my gosh, they have a YouTube channel. I follow them. Wait a minute, what? And so I felt like such an idiot because I just didn't know, some people there were more outgoing than others. And oh man, it was so fun.
It was funny because when you get there, they say their name and you're like, oh, hi. And then somehow way along the way, your handle would come up and I'm like, you're them? Oh my God, I love you. And you're like, oh. And talking about channels. I remember sitting at the table, just kind of having like my little moment. And I don't remember who it was, but across the way, it was like, Rhonda, you have a channel? And I'm like, yeah. What did you say? I'm like, I don't know. Right? And it was funny because it's like, okay, everybody, we need all your channels. And it's just, so what I take from this is there is a place for everyone. And, you may want to feel like you want to connect and be part of that community. There's nothing wrong with that. But when you find your community or communities, you just know it just clicks at one point and you're like, oh my God, I can feel like, I don't know about you, Rebecca, but there was a time where it was like, I'm not processing my thoughts of, can I say that to this person in this way? It feels natural. There's no that self-judgment.
I don't know. I felt I had yes and no, because I had different conversations with different people.
Yep.
And so there was some things that happened that I saw a little bit differently and behind the scenes. And so it was, there was some people that I really felt like I couldn't be myself or to even talk to. And then there were others that I felt like just were absolutely amazing. You were one of them. It wasn't honestly until we all stayed up late that night that I actually felt like I could open up at all. And then I felt great. But even after that, there were still a few that I was like, I don't know. There was a handful of ladies there that I never even spoke to.
True. And you make a really good point because yes, you're not going to get along with everybody.
Yeah.
And that's okay.
And not speaking to them wasn't intentional. I didn't want to say that. It wasn't intentional. It's just like they were on the other side of the room or they were engaged in their own conversations. Or by the time I got there, they were already in their own little bubble. And when I tried to go over and talk to them, it wasn't like, oh, hey, come on over and talk to us. It was like, hi, you're here too. Okay, cool. Thanks for stopping by. They weren't rude. Nobody was rude.
No.
I want to say that too. But it wasn't like I was like you were like, oh, hey, come sit down, join us, have fun, whatever. And that made me feel really good because I was struggling to open up in the beginning. And honestly, Shay is the ultimate, she was so sweet. She was so encouraging. Yes. I originally was sitting next to her at first, and then she moved her stuff over to sit with
Lexi.
who was it? Yeah, it was Lexi. She went over to sit by Lexi. And I think that's about the time that you came over and sat, or came over to say hi to me, because I was over there. So I left to go. Like I said, I didn't know anybody at this retreat. I only knew Shay online, and engaging in her content. And there was a couple other ladies who had channels there that I've followed their content, but I've never been a really truly engaging, like, participant on YouTube. I've not been that person. And so I know I've commented here and there, but it's nothing where I would, like, be a memorable face. Like, people wouldn't recognize that I'm returning because I returned. Like, I was there. I watch all of the videos. I thumbs up all of the videos, but commenting is very rare.
Yeah.
And so when I do comment, people are like, wait, do I recognize that? And then of course I changed my name, so that didn't help. But, but yeah, so that was just a thing, like going in and meeting people. And I completely lost track of what I was going to say, but going in and meeting people. Oh yeah, I remember. So, because of this whole event, I actually met a girl from my town, and we had a very brief video conference and kind of introduced ourselves and made a plan. And then the day that we were supposed to go to the retreat, I met her at a gas station and put my stuff in her car and we left. And yes. I think that's one of those things where, like, when you're growing up, they're like, don't get into a stranger's car.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
That's
exactly it. Yeah. I met 3 other ladies that I did not know before this. And I'm like, okay, honey, we're going to rent a car together. We're going to meet them at this location. And he's like, what? Okay. Who are they? I'm like, oh, they're people from the online, it's all good.
Right.
My son's like, but Mom, didn't you say not to take rides from strangers? I'm like, okay, well, I guess.
We're all friends on Facebook now, and I met them on the retreat. We had a Zoom meeting. We're good.
Yeah, exactly. I can show you what they look like. No, that's not what I meant, Mom. I'm like, oh, right. What did you say to me? I'm like, right.
Do they have a history of being a serial killer? I don't know. Could be.
No, exactly.
Could be. But no, I met Jennifer. She's great. She was a lot of fun to write down with. We had great conversations.
Oh yeah.
She's got a big heart.
She does. Oh my God. Oh yeah. And it was like, yeah, we were just laughing about the whole thing. And, it's like, okay, well, honey, I'm like, hey, everybody that I'm writing with, may I have your phone number so I can share it with my husband so he knows that I'm safe?
Oh my gosh. I didn't even do that with my family. I was like, you can look me up on Live 360. I'm fine.
Well, part of it is because, like, my husband is very, we joke, but that he's anal, that he likes to have everything planned, structured, knows exactly what's going on, what time you're getting there. And it's like, okay, honey, I'm at this airport. Okay, I'm now taking off. Okay, now I'm like, oh my God, please, you're parenting me. Please don't. And he's like, I just love you. I'm like, okay, I get it. That's what we do with our kids. Okay, let me know when you get there. Okay, when you're just about to leave, let us know.
Mm-hmm. And Jennifer's husband was the same way. She was calling him all the time. We would stop somewhere, she'd have to call him. We'd go, she'd have to call him, every time. And even if we were in the car for a long period, he'd be calling her,
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. And it was funny because my husband actually called me while we were in the car. And I'm like, and we were having a conversation. I'm like, hi, ladies. My husband's calling me. Hi, honey. How are you? And all the girls are like, hi.
I did the same thing with her husband. That's so funny.
So, there are communities for everybody. And even when you're in part of a community, there may be sections of that community that don't feel quite right, or, something's missing. That's okay. You don't have to change who you are, is what I'm learning. And
yes,
it can be scary, and it can be okay to kind of put down some of those walls.
Yes.
And go, okay, this is who I really am. And then like, oh my God, I love your personality. I'm like, I have a personality? I thought I didn't talk about.
Oh my
Right?
goodness, that's so funny.
And yeah,
So
it's true. So can you believe we're almost at an hour?
I know. I was just looking at the time and I was like, maybe we should, because I had mentioned that we wanted to briefly talk about words are escaping me about like setting boundaries for yourself. So maybe we should briefly talk about that before we head out.
Yes.
So I'll go back because I mentioned it before, but yeah, a close family member of mine was, and I can't even remember exactly what happened now because it's been a little bit. I could probably find out, but I don't remember. I don't want to divulge too much information because it's not their, but it's not, I don't want to share their business. But that close family member was told, you know, when they requested for a boundary to be, like the boundary they set to be met, they were told that they were being selfish. And I was trying to explain to them, as you do, that that's not selfish. And then I'm not even joking. Less than 12 hours later, I got a text message saying, I need this done. And I said, well, I can't do that, but I can do this. How about we do this instead? It was inconvenient for me and inconvenient for that person, but it was something that was doable for me and for that person. And that person got mad and said that I was selfish and did not care about anybody, and was basically told I did not care about my own children, which, if you think about it, as people who are sensitive on any way, whether it be emotionally sensitive or trauma sensitive or whatever, things like that, certain phrases are emotionally damaging for us. Yes. And it could be a trigger even. You know, that particular person who had said that was something that had been said to me for a decade and a half of my life. And it was triggering for me. And it's funny because in that moment, if that other person hadn't just had that conversation with me 12 hours prior, yeah, I actually probably would have been very upset and started questioning myself and whether or not I was setting inappropriate boundaries or if I was being wrong and, in asking for a compromise instead of, because I was not insisting that I have my way at all. In fact, the question, I'll just tell you, I had been asked, I want the kids this day. And I said, I understand. And that's during my parenting time. I will happily accommodate, but instead of that time, can we do this time instead? Because I'm doing something with them at this time. And we already had plans. It was already paid for. And I was told, you're selfish that you're not letting me have them. Well, it wasn't their day at all to begin with. And it wasn't, so it wasn't inappropriate. I could have said no. I could have said, no, you can't have them at all. This is my parenting time. But I didn't. I said, this time doesn't work for me and our schedule because we have something already paid for and planned. Can this time work for you? I'm willing to let you have them, just not at the time you're requesting. And I was told that I was selfish. That's not selfish at all. And so it's funny because in that moment, and it was a very healing moment for me, actually, because I had just had that conversation with somebody else saying, it is not selfish to set boundaries. It is not selfish to compromise. Literally, the whole point of compromising means that neither one of you are very happy with the situation, but you are still getting something that you want out of it, right? Yes. And so I actually laughed in that moment after that message came to me and I was told that I was selfish. I laughed. And it's one of the first few times that I actually had a moment where I could have been like pushed to be triggered so much that it sent me in a spiral. Yep. And it didn't. And it was an incredibly healing moment. So I kind of wanted to bring that up, not because of the healing moment, but just because it occurred to me for the first time that setting a boundary for myself, I can tell it to other people as much as I want to. I could tell my family member that came, asked me these questions. I could tell them that it was inappropriate for somebody to call them selfish in that moment, but it didn't ever sink in for me because of the trauma history. So I just kind of wanted to share like why it's important to recognize that setting boundaries and knowing it ahead of time, so that when people do call you selfish or people do say that you're wrong for wanting to compromise, that you can be prepared and say, no, this isn't wrong, because compromise doesn't mean you get your way. Compromise means we both get something we want, though it's not what we wanted to begin with.
Exactly. And I think that's a really good, okay, so I have a couple things. One, how did you feel when you actually discovered that you were laughing and didn't go into a response that you would usually have?
I felt strong. I felt empowered. And it was confusing. At first, I started to giggle, and then I was confused about my giggling, and then I felt silly for giggling. And then I felt like, hell yeah, I'm giggling. Sorry for the cursing, but you know what I mean? Like I went through this massive array of emotions in a very, very, very short time. And then I took a breath and I responded, but not to the name calling and not to what he wanted me to respond to. I responded to the question, and I said, okay, well, like, I don't even remember exactly what I said in this moment, but I do remember responding to him, but it wasn't about him calling me selfish. And that was, I think, a big, big thing, is not feeding into it. And then I was able to walk away from it and not come back to it in my mind in a negative light. I didn't go back and say, well, are you selfish? Did you say something wrong? Could you have been more giving? Could you have given him more time? Could you have canceled your plans? Because I shouldn't have to do all of those things. It was my parenting time, right?
Yeah.
So, and I get that my girls are older and they go spend time with their dad, that it's become a thing where now he'll just ask them if they want to go over, and they just come to me and they're like, hey mom, we want to go over to dad's at this time, even, whatever the order is, because they're older and I recognize that they want that time with him. They didn't have as much of it when they were little. And so I want them to have it, whenever they can, within reason, because they love their dad, and that's just what it is. But I also have to be cognizant of times that I'm being taken advantage of. And so it's a really hard path to navigate. But yeah, in that moment, it was really nice to be able to laugh and say, how ridiculous is this? And to recognize that I had taken another step in my healing process, in knowing that the information that I was being provided was false, and actually being able to accept it as false.
That's huge. That is huge. And I just want to give you a congratulations on that. The doing it and then realizing, and you having all those still emotions of like, this is weird, but should I be doing this? And feeling empowered, like that makes sense. Because when we're taught that setting boundaries, it is selfish. You should be doing everything for everybody else. That's what's important. But it's also a great way of role modeling for the kids or even your partner. Like, no. We're allowed to say no.
Exactly.
You didn't have to come with a compromise. You could have said, no, that's not going to work. And you don't have to explain it. Sorry, that's not going to work. But because there is importance for you, you went above and beyond what you absolutely had to do. It's huge.
It was very healing.
And I love that you felt that empowerment. Because sometimes we notice it and then we're like, okay, I have to do this next time. And if you don't do it next time, then you start beating yourself up. Oh, that was only a one-time shot. But they're not exactly the same.
Yes. Well, and I think part of the empowerment came from, it was two reasons. One is because didn't give in. I didn't cave to what he wanted because I was called the names that I'm afraid of hearing. Selfish is a huge trigger word for me because I want to be as selfless as possible my entire life. That's how I was raised to be selfless. And it's more than that because like I'm a faith-driven person, and that's what we're called to do is to, you know, give the shirt off of your back. Right. Yeah. And so to hear somebody call me selfish is a major slap in the face. It goes against everything that I've ever attempted or wanted to be. I want to be there for people. I want to give them things. And that's why I'm always willing to compromise. So it was empowering in that way, but it was also empowering in that I didn't feel guilty for setting that boundary. Yes. I didn't, you know, I was like, you know what, this is right. This is okay. I literally just got telling this person that I care about that it's okay to set boundaries and to have those boundaries and to expect people to follow those boundaries. And when they don't, to say, fine, you don't need anything. Right. And so to have a moment where I was like, I set my boundary and I stuck to it and didn't immediately go into a spiral of, oh my gosh, I was called selfish. Am I selfish? What am I doing wrong? Am I even leading my life right? Am I a horrible person? Why am I here? Like, what am I doing with my life? What am I doing with myself? And spiraling, I was like, no, I did a good thing here and it's okay.
Yes. So the gaslight didn't work.
Yes.
You actually had the extinguisher and went, no, I don't think so.
Exactly. That is another one of those key phrases that I think gets overused. People do not understand what gaslighting is. No. You know, anytime anybody says anything and they're like, well, I didn't actually say that, you're gaslighting me. No, that's not what that's about. That is a conversation that I think we could have in another one of our videos. We could definitely talk about what gaslighting actually is. If anybody's interested in that, let us know, because I think it's well misunderstood, overused term that makes it so people believe that everybody in this world is narcissistic and out to get them, and it's not true. But there are definitely people who are, and I think because the term isn't used correctly, people, men, women, children, are being victimized every day, and they don't even know it.
And I think that is a very good topic to have, because I know for the longest time, and in some cases, I still am like, is that gaslighting or is that not gaslighting? I don't know. And because they're not always clear.
Right, right.
The other one that I find is, what's it called? Gray rock?
Yes, gray rock.
And I'm like, what do you mean by a gray rock? So, like, there's certain terms that are just said and people mean well by them, but it's not used in the right sentence.
And both of those are terms for people with personality disorders, whether it be narcissism, sociopath, psychopath. There's, you know, all of those, that umbrella of terms. Flying monkeys is another one that's thrown around that's not really right. Golden child, again, is another one. These are terms that I had to learn intensely in therapy. And so I think, we can absolutely have a conversation about that and give information about it if people are interested. I would be happy to have a conversation about how that works, what it's about, and why it's important to know the truth behind what these words are, because we can't just accuse people of being something that they're not. Somebody can be a horrible person and not be narcissistic, you know?
Yes. Oh, yes. Yes, absolutely.
So, so anyway, what are your, really fast, I'm so sorry. What is your thoughts on like what we were talking about, you know, the idea of setting boundaries and not actually not being selfish with that, like being called selfish in times when somebody is just trying to get something out of you. Do you have any other thoughts or anything to add to that?
I think it's important to also realize that there are different types of boundaries.
That is a good point.
There are personal boundaries, there are work boundaries, there's different types of boundaries. What would your boundary look like with somebody who is more intimate and close to you versus somebody you work with. Somebody you're just getting to know versus someone that you've known a long time, but haven't really known them. There's also self-boundaries. Now that, for me, that was a new one, because I was like, self-boundaries? It's like, yes. So we all develop our own habits, our toolkits, and sometimes they're not aligned to our values and our beliefs, but we do them more because it's a habit or it's a routine. So, for example, when I am on a low day and it turns into a low week, then I don't do the self-care stuff I would normally do. I'm not as nice to myself. And yet being nice to others and letting them have their moments, their self-compassion, is really high on my values and my beliefs. And I will sometimes allow others to cross my boundaries because that's the easiest way to get through what I need to get through.
Yes, yes.
And then I beat myself up because I didn't stand my ground. So, you know, it's boundaries can be a tricky one because sometimes depending on the situation, boundaries aren't always a cement wall. Sometimes they have some give. And being okay when you go, you know what? I'm going to be okay if I give a little bit more than I would normally give because of these circumstances. It's not like when people go, it's either good or it's bad. It's right or it's wrong. No, there's actually a leeway in there. It's not always the one side or the other side. That's where we get into that all or nothing.
Yes.
Right? Boundaries, you know, like personal boundaries. I'm going to go out. I am going to hang out with some people that I want to hang out with. And I have things I need to do tomorrow. So I'm putting a boundary in of at such and such time, I need to go do this. Or you want to do that? That's fine. I'm not going to do that. And then it's like, oh, come on. Like, you know, you really want to do it. And you're like, you know, part of me says it would be funny, but it really doesn't align with me and I'm not going to do it. So I'm going to put a boundary of no, not doing it. Sometimes people don't like your boundaries, especially when you are changing your boundaries.
Yes. Well, and sometimes what's really sad is because not everybody is willing to establish their boundaries. Sometimes you push them on accident. Like I'm pretty sure I've done that to people, you know, like, you know, laughingly encouraging, you know, just people and out, you know, with a group and having fun. And you're like, oh, come on, you can do this. You can join us. Why aren't you coming to the party, whatever? And they're like, no, I don't want to go. They set that boundary. And then, you know, it's peer pressure and you're just, you know, like, and sometimes it's you're messing around and you don't realize how close they are to the prank. And that's another thing. Like,
yes,
recognizing other people's boundaries and recognizing when you're pushing too hard is really hard.
It is. And then after the fact, when you do realize that that's what you think you were doing unintentionally, then all that self-doubt and, okay, I have to really analyze this and how do I make up for this? And I
guilt,
relationship and that person and oh my, right?
Yes.
and it's hard. Like, you know, I was just thinking of a situation where, you know, we were talking with our son, and my husband and I were just kind of joking around, like we usually do. We joke around, and my son just kind of looked at me and went, "What?" And I went, "Right. You know what? That wasn't cool. Not cool. I'm sorry." And I think as I'm saying this, Rebecca, I don't know about you, but I think what I would like to do on a future get together is maybe talking about how adults don't always have all the answers, and that adults can make mistakes, that when we do something wrong or we get something wrong, apologizing and ask for forgiveness to someone else is okay.
Absolutely.
Right?
Yes.
Because I know when I grew up, it was like adults all had the answers. They were right. We were wrong. It didn't matter. And I'm like, but that's actually not what happens. Like, no, you're wrong. It's like, okay.
Yep.
And then you start doubting yourself. So you know, that's what I've tried to do with my kids is if I've done something and they were right, I will go and I will be like, you know what? I was wrong. I am sorry. Because that's how we teach our kids to believe in themselves, to stand up for themselves. And if we're always saying, you're wrong, you're wrong, you're wrong, they're going to grow up thinking that they're wrong.
Yes.
So how do you change that as an adult? It's really
I think that's a great conversation for the future because I'm a firm believer in the same vein that you are, and have had conversations with my kiddos and apologize to them for things. And my kids will say, you know what, Mom, our friends, their parents don't do that.
No.
So why do you do that? And I say, because I have a healthy mindset and I'm sorry that your friend's family does not.
Right. And it's true. And it's hard, right?
It is hard. It is hard. You have to swallow your pride and say you're sorry to a child, you know? But there's been situations because of my CPTSD that I have overreacted to something that I should not have overreacted to, and I've had to apologize for that. You know, I just remind my children that I am a human too, and I have emotions too, and I have feelings too, and sometimes my feelings get the better of me. I should not have let it, and I should have been a better adult, and I'm sorry.
Yes. And we're human. We don't have all the answers. You know, just because we're an adult and we're a parent doesn't mean that I went to school to learn how to be a parent.
Right? Man, I wish there was such a thing.
Yeah. You know, that Dr. Spock book didn't help me whatsoever.
I didn't even read that.
Oh, I'm just like, okay, this is going to happen. Nope, that's going to happen. Like, oh, what? That wasn't in the manual.
Yeah, no.
With manuals.
They do not. They do not. And having, you know, multiple children or, you know, going through divorce or whatever, all of those things are just little things that change everything.
Oh, yes.
Yeah. Oh, and I was struggling with, there was a section here I was struggling with. And so anybody that's watching, if you were wondering what that was, this is for another video.
Does your diamond painting have a Band-Aid on it?
It looks like it, doesn't it? It has a few Band-Aids, but no, I was really struggling. I had to pull the piece off and then I put it back on earlier and I was like, I bet people are going to wonder what that's about. Yeah, that's for another video. I'm almost done with this section though.
Me too. And I'm single placing.
Oh my gosh. I don't know how you do it. I don't know how you do it.
Multi-place.
Do you have
multi-place is like,
have you tried those tweezers that like are the reverse pinch?
No.
You haven't tried. I might look into reverse reverse pinch tweezers for you and send you a link to show you what they look like. See if you'd be interested in them, because I've heard that people that use tweezers, that's their favorite way to do it is with the reverse pinch ones.
No, really? Yeah, no, I've got my squishy on my tweezers, so it's easier on my finger.
Oh yes, yes.
But I've noticed, and I noticed as I was doing this, I'm struggling with some of these drills, and I'm like, Rhonda, why are you struggling? This should be like easy peasy. I'm like, Rhonda, that's just a thought. You're also talking while you're trying to do this, which is what you don't normally do. So cut yourself some slack. So
yeah, because like, in your lives you don't diamond paint. You chat with the screen. So yeah, you're right. You don't.
I don't. And I'm like, I can do this. I can do this. I can do this. And I know it's just practice. So,
well, and kudos to you for diamond painting with tweezers, because I would be, diamonds would already are flying everywhere for me. I don't need that.
Oh, they have flown, believe me.
And because of my camera, because I kept bumping it, I have done quite a bit more single placing than I ever do. I usually single place with my multi-placer.
So we're both in a little less comfortable situations where we're talking and we're trying to do what we love to do, and it's all working out.
Yeah. Oh, and I don't think we ever said, like, the reason we decided that we could have these conversations while we're diamond painting is because what we were talking about at the beginning, diamond painting has a lot of mental health benefits for all of us for a variety of reasons. And we thought, what a better way to talk about mental health items than to, not items, conversations, mental health, you know what I mean? Yes. Everybody gets it. Yeah. To have these mental health conversations than while doing something that's calming, because this is a really easy outlet for us. People can be diamond painting while we're diamond painting and just listen to us chatting about these topics of interest. And yeah, I think it's really going to be like a beneficial kind of way to segue into, you know, thoughts and processes that people may have not have thought about before in that way, or, you know, have questions about or whatever. So yeah, I'm looking, I really hope that this is something people are interested in seeing and, you know, watching and participating potentially in a live. I would love to see that for us, because I think the more my canvas keeps scooting all over the place too. I hope that that's not making people dizzy, but I'm hoping that this is something people find enjoyable and they would want to engage in. I really, really do, because, you know, not everybody understands mental health the way we do on the level we do because of our experience and our degrees and our, you know, lives and our jobs and the things that we have in our skill set. Yeah. And yeah.
And there's different perspectives.
It's
not like our way is the right way or is the highway. Not at all. You know, I don't come in as I have all the answers, but I am here. I will listen. I won't hold judgment. I'm not going to tell. Like, it's safe. This is a safe space for almost anything. Like, you don't need to tell me all the details. I don't need to know the details. Personally, I would prefer not to know all the details, but how does that feel for you? What are you going through? Because we all have the emotions. Sometimes we don't like them, and we don't know what to do about them.
Yes.
So I know for me, having my diamond painting here while having this conversation, it's actually helping me, because I'm like, okay, Rhonda, your drills are not going in there the way you want them. Okay, that means I need to slow down. I need to breathe and not overthink it.
Yeah. Well, and I also want to add to that. It's, you know, like we're looking at, and my brain is going to not be able to say this the way I want it to. You know, people hear about these words, the things that we're talking about, you know, boundaries and anxiety, or, you know, CPTSD, any of the things, any of the key terms that we've mentioned here. Mm-hmm. But you hear it in passing in a way that maybe you don't know what it is or how it impacts you or what it looks like, or maybe you have questions that you don't feel safe asking other people. See, that's the great thing about the internet. You know, you can ask questions and you don't have to worry about, are these people going to look at me differently? Because we can't see you.
No. And I wouldn't hold it against you anyways, because I'm not you.
Exactly. I've always been that I've always felt like we all need to have somebody that we can talk to that makes us feel safe, that makes us feel heard. And the reason that I think this is like an area that you and I are good at, I personally, and I'm sure you have too, I've had conversations with people explaining to them something or other. They're like, I don't know why this happens to me all of the time, and this and this and this. Like, I have had coworkers that say those things, and I explain to them why, and they're like, I never thought of it that way before.
Yeah.
Or, wow, you explained it in such an easy way for me to understand. Or, I actually had a coworker that told me that I have done more for helping her understand her childhood trauma than her therapist had, because I was able to relate it to things that in a way that made it easier for her to understand. You know, I think sometimes when we go to therapy for many, many years, we kind of get to a point where we're not always saying the words that they need to hear to understand where we are.
Well, you make a very good point, because there's times where they're like, okay, this. And I'm like, no, that's not, no, I'm saying this. And they're like, okay, this. I'm like, no, how do I say this so you understand what I'm trying to say? Because when you're growing up, you're not learning how to express it to somebody. So how do you know what you don't know?
Right.
And having that space to go, you know what? And I know, like, I don't usually talk about this topic with just anybody. It is someone where I feel comfortable. I feel like I'm seen, I'm heard. You're just sitting there with me. You can relate, but I'm not looking for you to fix it.
Yes.
I need to understand it. You're helping me process it. So when you're sitting there and having that conversation, it's like, oh, you mean that? Oh, now I get it.
Yes. Yes. And I think also, like, I think people go to therapy. Here's my big thing. I think people go to therapy and they expect that they're all created equal. And they're not. Not only are they not created equal, but a therapist that works for me may not work for you, and vice versa. Like, we all have our own ways of having conversation. We all have our own ways of processing things. And I could have a conversation with you and a light bulb will go on and you'll say, I've talked to people about this several times and I've never understood it. Or we could be having a conversation and I will be completely in the dark. I don't know. And I think that that's the thing, is recognizing that's why it's important to have conversations and to hear other people have these conversations, because you may not have thought of something in the way that we're thinking of it. And it may be one of those enlightening moments where you go, aha, I get it now.
Yes.
I get why that worked that way.
Yes.
And I think that's really ultimately what we're here hoping to do, is help people find those aha moments.
Yeah.
To understand a little bit more. Yeah. So anyway, I am so close to being done. Like I know, like, most people when they're watching these videos, if we stop right now, I have a feeling there are going to be people that are unsatisfied. So I am trying to very quickly finish these last little bits so that I can give that satisfaction of having a completed square. Because aside from obviously this little thing here, that will not be completed, but it's covered, so it's different, right?
Yes. And I'm glad you said that, because I'm noticing that I'm like, hey, it's not finished, but you know what? I'm ready for a break. So I'm just going to straighten mine. So for those that are okay without having a finish and being okay to come back, I'm going to finish the rest of this. I'm just going to straighten it. So I've got my straightener. I don't know about you, but I love straightening my drills.
Uh-oh, you just cut out for a second. I'm sorry. Can you say that again?
I love straightening my drills.
Oh, yeah, I don't bother. Like this one, I mean, sometimes I will, but this diamond painting has the glue on it is pretty slippery. And when I go to push one, they end up all moving. So when I'm pushing them around, I actually have to put my fingers over them and hold down the rest of them.
Yep.
And so this canvas, I'm like, you know what? It's not going to be as straight as I would probably normally get my other canvases, but it will be completed, and that's what matters.
Yeah, exactly. Well, and the drills will move slightly anyway. So I'm like, okay, I don't know. I think that's part of me where I just like things aligned, and
Hmm.
because I don't get the suction, the popping sound with my tweezers, I get it with my straightener.
Oh, that makes sense. That makes sense. Okay. Okay. Yeah, I see that. Well, my section is finished. If you see mine, my section is finished, which means that all I have left to do are these little squares, and then my diamond painting is complete. I
Yay!
am so excited about that.
That is awesome. So which
That
canvas are you working on?
I am currently working on Witch Girl by Make Market. It's the one I've been working on, I think, for a few weeks now. I've been so busy with work. This has been a very slow progress. I think over the summer when I was off work, like I was knocking them out. I had so many canvases completed, and yeah, this I have not been that successful, unfortunately. But you know, I got it finished. And so now I'm going to look and see because I have 6 days. Wait,
Uh-huh.
there's August is 30 days, right?
Yes.
So I have 6 days until drills and chills. So what am I going to do for 6 days?
Oh, there's 31 days. Sorry.
There's 31, so 7 days. So I have 7 days. I don't think I'll get a whole, because of my scheduling and everything, I'm not going to get a whole canvas finished in 7 days. So what am I going to work on? I'm going to have to work on a partial or a smaller picture or something.
Some videos.
Well, no, I'm good. I have some ideas.
Yeah.
I do have some ideas that I can work on. Oh my gosh. So one of my ideas is, so I have a rolling multi-placer.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't use it very much because it has a wobble. And so I found another tool that I've been kind of seeing people use here and there that I want to try and do a comparison and see how straight I can get the drills with this other multi-placing rolling tool.
Is that the big wedge?
It's like, I'll do a video because it's a mathematical tool is what I use.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. I know exactly what you're talking about.
Okay. So yeah, I thought about doing a video just comparing to see like if it's even possible to get a nice straight set of drills out of that, because the wheel wobbles too much and it drives me crazy. And I spend just as much time straightening them. So I'd rather just use my 12 placer, which I've been using this whole time. That's a 12 placer from Diamond Art Club.
And that's why I won't use one of those wheels, because I'm like, I'm not going to be able to get them straight. I can't get them straight with my multi-placer. How am I going to get it with the wheel?
Well, so yeah, that's my problem, because I typically can get them straight with the multi-placer, but the wheel is still a problem. And I just worked my way up. I started with a 3-placer, and then I went to a 4-placer, and then I did a 7-placer, I think, and then a 10, and then a 12. And now I use my 12-placer all the time. And like I said, I single place even usually with my multi-placer, but like there's the camera hits right here on my pen when I stand it up straight. So I'm hitting the camera. I hope that didn't bother people. But anyway, we have been on here for quite a while.
Yes, we have. So before we leave, do you know which painting I'm working on?
Well, yeah, I didn't even ask. I'm so sorry. That was rude of me. What are you working on? Oh, I am so excited to see how it looks.
So you got to be with me as I was working on this petal.
That is so cool. I do not know how you single place with the tweezers so fast. Like, kudos to you. Kudos to you.
Practice. I can't multi-place. So to each our own.
Right. Well, and that's the great thing about diamond painting, isn't it? There is no wrong way to do it. I hear people say that multi-placing is the only way to diamond paint. No. And single placing is not the only way to diamond paint. Like, you know, we do it.
I wouldn't have been able to multi-place in this section anyways, because all the different colors. In this section I could have, and this one I could have, and this one I could have, but not down here.
See, and I still would have multi-placed in there. I will put 2 drills on this side and 2 drills on this side. I'll place one and come to this side and place one, and then place the second one and place the second one. And I put 4 drills down in one round.
So I will do that with this one here. This is like what, my 4 placer?
Yep.
But the other thing I like to do with this one is I will do the checkerboard, and then I will alternate them in the space on my multi-placer and fill in the checkerboard.
Nice, nice.
So see, anything goes.
Right, anything goes. Anything goes. Okay, so really fast, did you end up seeing this dragon?
No.
So I had a couple cover minders. This is, so I ordered this as was a brooch or a pin on, for younger people that don't call them brooches, on Temu. And I fell in love with this dragon. And I talked about it in my whip and chat because it has emerald diamonds. Let me see if I can bring it closer. See, it's got little emerald diamonds in its wings. So I put it with this diamond painting because I turned it into a cover minder.
Minder. Oh, beautiful.
Yep.
And what stones are
it just came unglued. What?
Sorry.
I got sidetracked. It came apart and you were talking. I'm sorry.
I was just going to ask what the gems on the tail are.
Oh, I don't even know. They remind me of, there is a diamond. Let me see how close I can get that. There's a diamond that I recently worked on from DP with Sparklers that makes me think of it. And I can't, it's like green, but it has blue reflex and yellow reflex. It's so pretty.
It's pretty. Yeah. Very.
And it's got a few of them down that's back here too, like that.
Oh, that's so cool.
And I've had people ask me, and I'm like, I will send people the link, but I don't know that other people know how to turn these into cover minders. So, and
you might just have to make some.
I did make this one. I've made several, and I may have to show. I could possibly do a video showing what I do with these. But the glue that I used on this one was an older glue, and I just got a new glue, so I will be fixing this today with my new glue.
And
but yeah, these diamonds are.
You can change. You can fix them.
Yes.
So because come off.
Well, no, these aren't. I used a. There's a special glue that people use, and I can't even remember what it's called.
E6000.
Yeah. I had an old E6000 though; it was kind of dried out, and that's why it probably didn't work. It was too gummy. But no. So I can't change it out. It's just. I purchased some, and I also purchased some new magnets, and that may help too.
Oh.
I purchased better magnets because, So I may make this a better dragon, but it's kind of difficult to explain how to make these in a very, very short time. So that's why I may, if people are interested in that, I may make a video of that too, like how I make cover minders. But I don't make them to sell them. I did sell a few at our retreat that I unintentionally, but I don't know. It's one of those things where I enjoy doing it. I also bought all of the stuff so that I can try making a resin tray, a trinket tray.
Yes.
So I'm like one of those people that's like, here, let's make a video and I'll show you how I epically fail learning how to do this craft, this new hobby. So I know my channel is a diamond painting channel, but I consider doing let's see if we can make a diamond painting trinket tray. Making a video.
Oh my God, you are my sister from somewhere else, because that's exactly what I was planning on for my stuff too. It's like, I see these videos, I'm like, oh, I could do that. Let's do that. Oh, that so did not turn out like that.
Well, and typically, because I'm one of those jack of all trades kind of people when it comes to certain kinds of crafts. This is one of those things. I've done resin before, and so I feel like I could potentially be successful at, so I bought all the supplies. I'm just waiting on the rest of the resin to come in. So who knows? I will probably do a video where I'm like, let's see if I fail. Let's see if this is a win or a fail.
I might have to watch that because I bought a resin kit downstairs and I haven't pulled it out.
Really?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
I am one of those where it's like, ooh, that is so cool. I need all that stuff. So I go and get it. And then it's like, I don't know how to do this.
Yeah. Well, and that's I've watched like one video. I didn't even when my dad passed, I got a couple locks of his hair and
Mm.
I had no idea what I was doing. And I decided that I was going to make resin necklaces for my sisters and my aunt and my mom and myself with this hair that is so important, and never had watched a video or how to on doing any of it. So that was a learning experience and
Oh yeah.
nerve-wracking experience. And they didn't turn out perfect, but I think they turned out pretty well for the first time. And like I showed on my channel, I tried resin. I made myself a keychain with sand from the beach. And so I
Cool.
was like, well, let's just go big or go home. So, but those other ones were UV resin, and this one is going to be the other stuff. So hopefully it'll be a little bit easier to manage.
Well, that's a good point because I don't know what type of resin I have downstairs.
So yeah, there's two kinds. The UV resin is a little bit softer. So if you're wanting it to be durable and stand up long term, they recommend the mixing. I can't remember what it's called. The other kind that's you mix the two different kinds together, and then it hardens over a 48-hour period.
Okay, so that's what I must have because the kit has 2 bottles in it that I have to mix.
Okay, then yes. And so I went all out. I bought stuff like butterflies to go in a tray, and I bought dye, and I bought glitter, and I bought what else? I bought like little pieces that are different shapes, like flowers and things like that. I bought these like actual dead flowers to go in there. Like,
Oh yeah. So I was going to do that, and I was like, stop.
well, and
you have to try it first before you decide.
Right. Well, so the kit that I had 3 different sizes of trays. And then I found another kit that's like, those grinders for separating drills. I don't have one of those. And so it was a kit to make the grinder.
Oh.
And I was like, ooh. So I pulled that and got that too. And then there was this other looking at, because, for the retreat, I made a little fishtail cover minder. Yeah. That I gave to everybody. And I was like, well, this will be fun. It'll be something I can give everybody a little thing. Well, I was going to try and do something for the retreat again this year. And so I purchased this other thing, and it ended up it's way bigger than I thought it was. So I have to keep doing some research, but I have an idea for something that I want to make everybody that we did not get at the retreat last year that is diamond painting related. So I was like, ooh, see a need, fill a need. But that means I have to learn resin.
Yeah, no, exactly.
Well, and I'm hoping that they'll tell us the theme pretty soon, because I would like for it to match the theme if possible.
No, exactly.
So anyway,
so on that note,
right.
I put my elephant here, and as you were talking, I was like, oh my gosh, we were literally talking about the elephant in the room, and I'm working on an elephant.
That's hilarious.
Oh my
gosh. That is hilarious.
I would hope, I'm hoping that, I hope the people have enjoyed our conversation. They have found it helpful, insightful, curious, and safe and comfortable.
Agreed, yes.
And I'm really looking forward to doing our next one for next month.
Me too.
There are so many different topics we can talk about, discuss our own perspectives, what we have found works, maybe something that hasn't worked, because we always have both.
Mm-hmm.
And if you guys watching, thank you for watching. Let us know what you thought of this. We'd love to hear your thoughts. If there are topics you would like to discuss or have us discuss, bring them up. By all means, do let us know, because your voice does matter.
Well, that's why we're doing it. We're doing it for them. So yeah, that's the only thing that matters.
Yeah. So I want to say thank you to Rebecca. Thank you for being you.
Oh, you're very sweet.
And being here with me on this topic. And I thoroughly enjoy our conversations. I am so glad I had the opportunity to meet you and get to know you. You do bring a sparkle into this world.
Oh,
and your name is absolutely beautiful, Sparkle Sanctuary, because we all deserve a sanctuary. So thank you.
well, thank you too. I really I was not anticipating anybody being so open and kind. Like your approach to me at the retreat was really everything. And I just can tell that you are such a genuine and kind soul. And I am so very, very grateful that I got to meet you and that we've become friends. And that's why I reached out after, afterwards saying, were you serious about wanting to do this? Because I think this is an important area of the diamond painting / mental health community that's missing. And I'm hoping that we are filling a void that's a need. And I'm hoping people like this because I enjoy this. I enjoy sharing information and learning information and just helping people along their journey in life. And, whatever way that we can be a safe place for people is amazing. And I just really appreciate anybody who listened to this for taking the time to let us be that space for you. And for, sharing any of your thoughts and feelings, because you don't have to. And it's just, I'm very grateful to just have this opportunity.
Yes, very grateful and very honored to have this opportunity. It's important. So I think we're going to leave everybody now. So wherever you are in the world, please remember you are doing the best you can with what you have in this moment. You've got it. I will say, have a good day for wherever you are.
Yes. And I want to add that don't forget to, and like I say in the end of my videos, don't forget to take care of you. And whatever way you need it, whatever mental health capacity you need it, don't forget to take care of you, because we as adults often forget to take care of ourselves.
Agreed. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.